Are we on?
Yep, we're on. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. We had some audio issues getting this webinar live. So we'll wait until a few more people join and then we'll get started quick smart for you. Thanks so much for joining us on your Tuesday lunchtime. We're very excited to talk about all things US trading. All right, should we get started? We'll just share our screen for you.
Oh, not share. We'll get there.
All right, there we go. So welcome everyone to our US trading webinar. The first time we'll be speaking on a webinar about US trading, which we're very excited about. And I am very excited that we have our CEO and co-founder, John Winters, here with us today to take us from the very start of thinking about US trading to what and how to trade. Yeah.
Let's get started. Thanks for joining us.
Just a quick disclaimer there that we don't provide any financial advice that considers your personal objectives, financial situation, or particular needs, and all investments do carry risks, so make sure you consider carefully before investing. So today we'll do a bit of an overview around the US markets and what exactly it is. We'll then have a look at how to trade US shares with Superhero and some of the opportunities that you can gain by having exposure to the US market. I think that's often what we find is people just don't know where to start or don't know what to invest in. And while we don't provide financial advice, we'll give you a bit of an overview about what's available on our platform. And then we'll go into some frequently asked questions and some live Q&A as well. When it comes to a bit of housekeeping, please feel free to use the chat if you'd like to say hi, but if you do have any specific questions throughout the webinar, please pop them in the Q&A function and we'll be able to answer some of them live at the end. And if there are any questions that we don't get to, please feel free to email our team at hello@superhero.com.au, or we're always available during market hours on live chat as well. And our team here in Sydney will be able to support you there. So, where Aussies are investing. John, we did some research based on 18 to 45-year-olds and where their positions were in investing. And these were some of the stats. Would you mind taking us through, I guess, what these mean for you and how you're thinking about the landscape of investing at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So some fascinating research that we did. I might start with the last point and then work backwards. It's like reading from the bottom to the top.
End of the book first, get to the punchline.
Exactly. But it was really interesting to see that over 80%, 4 in 5 Aussies under 45 think property is more and more out of reach. And it's tough to get into the property market. And what we see people doing is they're taking their savings, they're taking that money that they may have been saving for a deposit, which is always getting bigger and bigger, the need for a bigger deposit. And they're looking at how can they grow that wealth quicker? How can they build it up over a long period of time? And we often see, and we're seeing a growing number of Australians turning to, particularly younger Australians, turning to share trading to build their wealth. And we have seen tremendous performance in both property, but also in shares. And there's about 40% of Australians now investing directly into ASX listed shares, Australian listed shares. And that's grown significantly particularly over the last 12 months during the pandemic, but over the last few years. And more people are turning to US shares. Yeah. And it's the US shares that people have an attraction to, because a lot of the companies over there are the ones that we use every day. It's Apple, it's Tesla, it's Netflix, it's those consumer household brands that we know, that we love, and that we understand. We understand the business model. Netflix charges, I don't even know what they charge.
It's going up slowly.
14 or 9, somewhere between $9 and $15. Don't quote me. But it's those sorts of products that people want to invest in, and we're seeing rising demand for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to investing, and especially investing for the first time, there can kind of be this fear around, oh, I'm not a financial expert. I don't know enough. But particularly with the US, also with Australia, with some of the brands like Afterpay or Zip or Combank. But there are a lot of brands there that we just know and understand in everyday life. All right. So when it comes to the difference between the Aussie and US market, I think there are a number of reasons, like we've spoken about, that people invest in US shares. But I thought it would be good to do a bit of a side-to-side comparison around the size of the US market as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
the US market is fascinating. It is significantly bigger than the Aussie market. And I was talking to the guys at Equity Mates the other day.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys got a chance to listen to the recent podcast, but I mentioned on there that Apple as a single company has a bigger market cap than the entire Australian market cap of all companies listed on the ASX. That gives you an idea. That's one company.
Yeah.
It is the biggest company in the world. But it does give you an idea around the size of the US market. It's creeping up to $50 trillion in total market cap. So when we look at the opportunities there, we've got about 2,300 different shares listed on the ASX. They're all available on Superhero. When we look at the US market, there are thousands of companies that are available, and they go down from all the way from penny stocks or pink sheets or billboard securities.
If anyone's seen The Wolf of Wall Street, you know what that is.
You can go from over the counter, so there's no sort of electronic market that they trade on, right all the way through to companies like Apple or even Berkshire Hathaway's Class A shares, which cost almost $500,000 per share. So there's a huge range of variety. We've got about 4,500 listed shares on Superhero. Those are shares that you can trade. Fractional shares, we'll go into that a little bit later. But there's a huge amount of opportunity. I agree. The issue is when you've got so many different options, it's sort of like what do you invest in first? That's almost the hardest thing. But if you look at the performance, the US market has performed relatively closely to the Australian market. It's up about 10% per year over the last 30 years. Yeah. So this is tremendous performance.
Yeah, not bad when you compare it to a bank account. What you might be getting, 1% at the moment.
And that's every year over the last 30 years. Yeah. So there's that saying, time in the market versus timing the market. Yeah. If you had money in the market for the last 30 years, you would have made 10% a year, including the GFC, including whatever. 9/11, all of the different major points, even the crash that we saw early last year, and the Aussie market's similar to that, doing about 9%. That doesn't take into account currency. So when you do invest in US shares, you are exposed to the currency fluctuations. Yeah. But huge amount of opportunity. Often hard to really identify those companies, which we will get into.
Great. So I thought as a next step, we'd do a bit of a look into some of the, into some of the indexes that are available in the US. Now, this is, I guess, a way to get an overview of what the market includes. And there are a couple of different main exchanges and main indexes that are available in the US, kind of similar to maybe the ASX 200 in Australia. So John, would you mind taking us through? I've picked out the biggest three here that people use as an overview of the market.
Yeah, so you probably see on the news, the commentators talk about the Dow, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq. So those are indexes in the US, or indices in Australia. To take you through each one, though, the Dow is like the blue chip index. So it is the top 30 companies in the States, and those are all household brands. It's Apple, it's Amazon, it's Boeing, it's some of those really massive companies, big healthcare companies. Blue chip, they are the ones that have long established businesses, and the performance there is it's pretty good over the last 12 months.
It's still pretty strong. It's interesting that across the board they're all quite similar in terms of performance. And I guess when you look at the entire market, there's so many factors that go into play, but you really see there too how macroeconomic and these big trends play in, as opposed to just the individual changes in companies too.
Yeah. The S&P 500, that's a broader index. So the Dow is 30 companies. The S&P 500 is 500 different companies. When you compare that to Australia, we look at the All Ords is Australia's top 500. But if you look at the total market, you've got about 2,000 different companies, and then you've got a bunch of ETFs as well. So it's almost a quarter of all companies fit into that index. With the US, the top 500, I wouldn't be able to list every one of them, but you'd go through that list and they're all household brands. A lot of them are. You would know a significant portion of what makes up that index. Yeah. But again, you're looking at the biggest companies pretty much in the world. So you've got all of the big ones. You've got Apple, Amazon, Tesla, Netflix, Boeing, some of the American airlines, some of those really big, well-known, well-established companies there. And then you move across to the NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ Composite Index is the top 100 tech-focused companies. Yeah. So that is tech. And for anyone who has traded ETFs on Superhero, there is what we call a theme, which is the US Tech Heroes or US Tech theme. That the underlying ETF is NDQ. It's the BetaShares NASDAQ 100 index. So you're actually buying exposure to this entire index. Now what you've got the opportunity to do is go and buy the individual companies under that index. Yeah. But when we look across the board at those three indices, the performance is pretty close. The market does track pretty closely across all of them, but they do all have quite a similar makeup at the top end. And that's what really drives a lot of the performance across them.
Yeah, when you do think about those big companies like you spoke about, they are sitting in all three. So I think that's important to understand. I know when I was first looking at finance, those names meant nothing to me when I'd see them, or even as a kid on the 6 o'clock news, I'd be like, why are we talking about this? But when it hits reality and when you can actually trade these shares and understand them a little bit more, it makes a lot more sense. So we, as part of our survey that we did and our research that we did in June, we asked people what stocks they were most interested in when it came to the US. And we had some interesting results. These were the top 10 that people came back with. And the first kind of 5 there are not surprising to me. You see the biggest brands in the world, your Apples. Tesla's been in the media a lot recently. They're leading the charge in electronic vehicles. Amazon and the e-commerce kind of growth that we've seen over the past couple of years. You can see there Microsoft, Google. So a lot of companies that probably would have been the top for quite a while now, probably over the last 10 years have seen the most significant growth. But a few there that were interesting to me. I think Pfizer, very interesting.
Well, they're ones that sort of, you look at what's happened during the pandemic, and all of these companies have had tremendous growth, or at least have been put at the forefront of everyone's mind. So Pfizer, obviously a big one around the pandemic with the vaccine. You've got all the FANG stocks there. Disney's one that doesn't often stand out. You kind of think, you grew up with Mickey Mouse and things, but Disney is a massive business. It is huge. And now with their streaming service, it's no wonder why they are even more popular. PayPal's an interesting one as well. They recently announced that they're moving into Australia, into the buy now, pay later space. PayPal's market cap is as big as all 4 big Aussie banks put together. So it just shows the size of this market. It really is fascinating to see the quantum of money over there.
And I think we know how big these brands are for us every day as Aussies, but then imagine how big they are for us and then put that to the US population. And these are US companies. It's just on a whole other level. I don't know the exact stat on our population versus the US, but I think it's something around 17 times. So for every one Aussie there's 17 Americans. So the scale is absolutely massive. Disney,
it's about
to me,
the same for the market as well.
It pretty much correlates, right? Disney, they're a very interesting one versus Netflix. I think traditionally people wouldn't have seen them as being direct competitors.
Done it again.
Whoops. But now that Disney have gone into the streaming space, you're also noticing Netflix go into their owned media space because Disney owns so much what we call IP or intellectual property, or they actually own their titles. And I think Netflix has actually seen that and said, great that we have this service, but we actually need to own the
as
product.
Well. Yeah.
So they're all of a sudden starting to compete much more closely. So it doesn't surprise me that the
from
interest
a
is
business model point of view, it's quite interesting because they obviously don't have to pay away their premiums, royalties for streaming their content. When you look at these top 10, they've all been pretty, if you look across them, they're all household brands, particularly Pfizer now, given the pandemic. But they've all come into, certainly into my life in the last 12 months, and I'm sure a lot of Aussies. I mean, looking at the bottom 5, we do have Disney at home.
Yep.
The kids love it. PayPal's an interesting one. I don't use PayPal that much anymore, but they do have a huge market share, particularly in the States.
Yeah.
But they are all well-known business models. Aussies understand them. We all use them. And understanding the business model is the first step in understanding what to invest in. That's the research that we don't realize we're doing. And one of the things that we say at Superhero is invest what you're invested in. And I'm certainly invested in all of those without actually owning shares. And I do own some shares now in a few of them, but without owning shares in all of them, I am invested. I do understand what their business is. Facebook, ultimately, it's an advertising business. You look at Disney, they obviously run theme parks and things, which is, I would say, would be a small part of their earnings, but it's all of those TV shows and things. Apple sells devices, so we understand their business model, and that is the first step to understanding and doing research around a company.
I think the last thing I'd say before we move on is, someone said to me recently, a lot of these are tech companies, or they'd sit within the tech sector, and there's a thing around diversification, which we do want to be diversified and make sure that our portfolio is across a range of different sectors. But a lot of these play within 2 sectors as well, which is really interesting. So you do have, for example, I would say Microsoft is a pure play tech business. They sell tech products to people, and they're enabled by a lot of cloud technology as well. Whereas the other companies, yes, they are technology, but they actually play in a range of different consumer sectors. So you do get diversification within technology as well. You've got, like you said, your consumer discretionary products, you've got automotive, you've got e-commerce, which really covers any kind of consumer staple that you would want.
As well as finance.
As well as finance with PayPal, and then entertainment with Netflix and Disney. So you can see, while a lot of these are in the tech space, they really do give you a good overall show of the market and what people are actually spending their time and money on.
Yeah, these are the most popular on the platform as well, which is interesting. This research was conducted before we actually launched US share trading, and went out to a number of people who aren't Superhero customers. So that's a broad market overview, and it seems to be following true on the platform as well.
So we just spoke about the companies that are the most popular, and the big behemoths in the US. But it is important to remember, and a big reason why we went into US trading is the scale of different companies that are available and the breadth of different companies. And I thought it would be good to look at some of the IPOs or recently listed public companies in the US, just to show how you can actually become an owner of some of these cool up and coming new brands that have only just become available to invest in.
Yeah, we saw there's and been a number of IPOs on the Australian market, and they're very popular. Looking at Airtasker, which had a tremendous run straight out of the gates. Looking at the US, all of these brands, they're certainly known to me. I think a lot of people, have probably used Airbnb or at least considered it. I've done a couple of F45 training sessions. Thought I was going to die. And Coinbase listed with great fanfare as well. And who doesn't love a Krispy Kreme donut? So there's these companies that are household brands, and now they're coming to market. So people have used their product. They understand the business model, and they want to be invested in that. They can own their slice of, you might go to an F45 gym, you can own some of that. You understand what it costs, you understand how many people are going there. It's the first step of doing that research. And they've been pretty popular so far.
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to investing in some of these newer companies as well, from a personal level, yes, we use all of the big companies, but really feeling like you're part of the company's growth story or that you're growing with them along the trend. It can be quite exciting and quite interesting with these types of companies, and a lot of Australian exposure, interestingly, there. I think Atlassian was probably one of the first paving the way for Australian companies listing in the US. But all of a sudden we've started to see F45 started in Paddington in Sydney and now is a big multi-billion-dollar company listed in the US. Coinbase has quite a large Australian investment pool too. So really interesting to see the Australian impact now in the US market too. And a lot of Australian companies are realizing the opportunity that's in US. So it's great to be part of that. Yeah, I'll let you take this one.
No, look, global companies have been pretty popular as well, and this ties back into some of the feedback we got from our Aussie share trading. So the Beta Shares Asia Tech Tigers ETF has been very popular. Now you have the opportunity to go directly into those shares. So the US does offer exposure to pretty much every market in the world. You can get exposure to Europe, you can get exposure to Asia. But having direct ownership of companies like Alibaba and JD.com, like these are some of the biggest retailer, whether it's wholesale or retail, they are some of the biggest e-commerce platforms in the world. Alibaba would be up there, alongside or probably trailing just behind Amazon. It is a wholesale business, but these companies have got huge growth. They've got a huge population to market to as well. So it stretches across the world. So whether it's South America, whether it's Europe, whether it's Asia, there's a number of companies that you can get exposure to through the US market.
And emerging markets are a really interesting one, I think. While you've got these developed markets that are so used to technology, and every single person's got an iPhone, a laptop, and there are companies operating in markets where that's not the case, but it's growing so rapidly. And their consumer bases, like you said, in China, in South America, they're really kind of catching up to the developed world. And all of a sudden there is a lot of growth in technology in those markets, and across the board with income too, and the population getting more wealthy over time.
I think the other thing is that while the US is a much bigger market in terms of market cap, there's a bigger range of investments as well. So the ETF pool is bigger. The ESG investment opportunities are much bigger as well. So there's I don't know the exact numbers, but it'll be about 10 times the number of ETFs listed in the States. So whether it is ethical, whether it is sustainable investing that you're looking for, there's a huge amount of opportunity in that space. Whether you want something that is ethical but in the energy space, whether you want something that's sustainable but in the energy space. So there's a whole sort of different market over there that you can invest in.
So Superhero, we launched US trading. I think we're in our third week now, which we were very excited to launch on Independence Day for the 4th of July. And I thought it would be good, why we're all here, is that how do you actually trade US shares with Superhero? And firstly, just to look at some of the features that we offer and how it works on the platform. So firstly, John, could you just take us through a few of what this actually means when it comes to, as a customer, trading US shares with Superhero?
Yeah, sure. So what we've seen globally is there's really been a race to the bottom in terms of costs to invest. They hit zero in the States. Some of our big peers over there got brokerage rates down to zero. There's a whole range of reasons why it is zero. We supplement our revenue, or that we offset the cost of putting your trades through at zero brokerage by charging FX transfer fees. But I think the key push behind going into US is no one has really brought to market a platform that offers your Australian share portfolio and your US share portfolio side by side. There are other platforms that you can sort of click over here and then you toggle to over here, and then transferring money takes 3 to 5 business days. And it's just a really poor user experience. We want to have control to do things on demand. We might not use that control all the time, but we want to know that we've got it. And that's what we feel that we've brought. So we've brought zero brokerage. We offset that cost by charging FX transfer fees. We have been able to bring to market very low FX transfer fees. So it's 50 bips compared to higher rates seen by some of our competitors. We've got live market data. So we were able to cut a deal with the NASDAQ. They actually put us up on the NASDAQ tower in Times Square. For anyone who saw that picture, it wasn't photoshopped. We were actually up in Times Square, which was pretty exciting. It's a bit of a pinch me moment. But I think those three things are what really set us apart. So having your portfolio all in one place, having the costs very low. So those barriers to entry are very low, but then being able to move your money, not on a per trade basis, but being able to fund your USD account in real time. You can bring your money back to Aussie if you need it. You can use real-time deposits using PayID. You can withdraw it back to your bank account in Australia. The flexibility is really there for you to move your money and control your money how you want to control it without having someone else say, no, it's going to take days for you to do something, or you can't do this, you can't do that.
Or there's a high cost to do it. Yeah. So when it comes to that transfer and trade, just to clarify there for anyone that didn't quite understand, it's 0.5% as a fee that we charge when you transfer money from Australian dollars to US dollars, but then there's no fees to actually trade within that. So once you've transferred your money, you can trade with zero brokerage, and that fee, I think we are the lowest in the market in terms of transfer fees. And you can compare all of that online. But yeah, it's lowering barriers to entry and allowing people to invest the way that they want to invest.
Yeah. The next one is an interesting one, and we've seen it across US share trading platforms, is fractional trading. So there are some companies, like if you take Amazon as an example, share price is up in around the $3,000 per share mark. What the US market has been able to do is break down those shares into fractional portions. So when you say you want to buy $200 worth of Amazon, you can, but you get a fraction of a share. So you have ownership over that fraction. You can buy whole units. You can buy 2 or 3 or 50 units or as many as you want in any particular share. But if you did want to invest just a dollar amount into something, you can with Superhero. And it really opens up that accessibility to investing as well. Yeah.
And especially when you're investing for the first time, to go and put $3,000 to buy one share of one company, it's a lot. So you can actually break that down and invest how you want, or spread your investment across a number of different companies as well in smaller amounts if you choose to do so.
So I'll go to the bottom and then we'll work up again. So we don't have any account fees. There's never an account fee charged to your account. It's free to join. The only charges that you would have would be the FX transfer into US dollars. Once your money's in US, you can trade as much as you want. The last piece on it is tax reporting. So for many of you who have already used our comprehensive tax reporting tools on the platform, the same works for US. So we calculate all of your realized and unrealized capital gains. All of your income will be in there as well. It'll show you all of your transactions, whether you've moved money from Aussie dollars to US dollars and back again. It is all there. So at tax time, you can download that report, you can give it to your accountant, and away you go. Really simply, we don't charge any additional fees for that. It really is a great way to track your performance, to track your portfolio without having to pay any additional fees for it.
Yeah, and that is something that I recently used. I did my tax return last week. I was very proud of myself for doing it in July. And it was very, very helpful in getting that done. So just to cover it off with what we've done, we'll go through very quickly. I've come onto Superhero. I've signed up for my account in a couple of minutes. I want to trade US shares. How quickly and how do I do that, John?
Yeah, so the exciting thing about this is, I don't know if anyone's seen our ads on the footy on AFL recently, but you could be sitting on the couch on a Thursday night. You could go to Superhero, download the app, or go to our website, superhero.com.au. You could register for an account. So that will take you anywhere between 1 and 3 minutes, depending on how quickly you can type your details in. So you get an account. You can then do a PayID deposit into your account. So you use your unique PayID. That takes anywhere between 1 and 3 seconds.
Also, depending on how fast you
Yeah,
can type.
you can type. So you've now funded your Aussie dollar account. You can transfer to US dollars in real time. So you could transfer whatever amount you have put into your Superhero account. In Aussie dollars, you can transfer into US dollars.
Yeah.
And you can place a trade to buy Apple or Tesla or whatever company you want in the US. So it's probably going to take you maybe 5 minutes. So from going from nowhere, you can be investing in the US market within just a few minutes. The same day. So there's no time to set up your account.
Yeah.
There's no time to transfer your money. It's all really, really quick in real time.
Which, when it comes to financial decisions too, while we do want to do our research and consider things, we also want to be able to be reactive and be quick when things are happening in the market. So we absolutely knew that we had to have that real-time element there to be able to let people make decisions when they want to make them and not have to wait for days to be able to.
Well, I think it's the next Netflix model.
Yeah.
You can wait. You can get the TV guide
now.
and wait till Thursday night at 8:30 to watch whatever show you want to watch, or you can turn on Netflix and watch it straight away. So that on-demand feature is what people expect. So whether it's getting a car to the airport, you want to go onto Uber, you want to say I want a car now, or Uber Eats, you want to get your food now, order it now. It's the same thing. So you can move money in real time. You can place a trade. The only limitation is you have to wait till the market opens for your trades to go through.
That is true. And I think this is on the next slide, but when it comes to the market hours, what are the trading hours for the US market?
Yeah, so Sydney time, the US market hours at the moment, daylight savings does change it a little bit, but at the moment it is 11:30 p.m. till 6 a.m. I think. Yeah, it is 6 a.m. That's Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Yep.
So yeah, the market does need to be open for your trades to go through. You can place a trade earlier in the day. It will go into the market when the market opens.
Yeah, so you can still place all of your orders. It just won't actually go through or trade.
And we see a lot of people coming on and placing US orders throughout the day.
Yeah.
That when the market opens, they go into the market. So they'll either trade on the open, or they'll go in as a limit order and be at the price that you want to place it at.
So you don't have to wake up at 2 a.m. just to place your order. You can if you want.
Want. Support team will be on as well if you have any questions.
Yeah, we do have support available for you when trading US shares as well. We covered off tax reporting on the last slide, John, but there's a bit of a nuance when it comes to tax in the US. And I think people often have questions about the requirements for US tax when you're an Australian and you're trading US shares. So how does that work on Superhero? Yeah,
so Australia has a treaty agreement with the US around tax. The US IRS has set a withholding rate of 30%. So when you get paid dividends or interest, it's not on capital gains, it's on dividends or interest that gets paid. You get charged 30% unless you've completed a W8 Ben form. So that is a W8 Ben form is a statement, a beneficial ownership statement that says you agree to the treaty rates agreed with the country that you live in. So for Aussies, what it does is it reduces your tax rate on US income and interest from 30% to 15%.
Yeah.
So when you file your tax return, that's important to know. So the W8 Ben form, it's all automated on the platform. So when you deposit your first amount of money, you will get a tax questionnaire that comes up. It'll ask you where you're born, citizenship, country of residence, and for your tax file number. You don't have to provide your tax file number. That's up to you. You will miss out on Aussie franking credits and things, but it does complete the W8 Ben form. So even if you don't want to trade US shares, it's simply ticking a box, and you will be all set up and ready to go. But it does reduce you've got the opportunity to reduce your withholding tax rate from 30 down to 15%.
Yeah, so it's thanks to Australia for having a great relationship with the US and allowing us to pay less tax. John, if people already have a US share portfolio, obviously we've just launched US shares on the platform. If people have their US shares on another platform, how do they transfer those to Superhero?
Yeah. So it's a push process rather than a pull. So you need to go to your existing broker. You can fill in a transfer form with them. They will then get in touch with us and send that transfer form through to us. We don't charge for transfers with Superhero. However, some other platforms have started and they've increased their transfer fees. Probably knew we were coming. They have increased their transfer fees. You can speak to them about trying to get that reduced. The fees that some of these platforms are charging are not what it costs.
Yeah.
They are trying to make a profit to stop people from transferring. So have a conversation with them. Say you really do want to move, but you can fill in a transfer form with them and have your shares transferred to Superhero.
Yeah.
Which it will work just as a number of people have transferred Aussie shares over.
Yeah, great, cool. Now I think we covered off fractional shares. So the next one down there is similar to that question. Are all US shares that are on the market available on Superhero?
Yeah, so there's probably about 8,000 to 10,000 different companies listed on various US exchanges. So it's not like Australia where we've got the Australian Stock Exchange. There's the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, CBOE. There's a whole range of different exchanges there. And there's companies, there's companies that have listed on whatever exchange they've listed on. So we don't offer all of them. We offer about 4,500 at the moment. Those are all the companies that can be traded with fractional shares. So there's other companies, and as an example, Berkshire Hathaway, the Class A shares, which are about $450,000 or $500,000. You can't buy a fraction of that share. You can buy the Class B shares, which removes your voting rights, but I'm not sure if there's too many people. Even buying one share in the Class A, it's about a $500 billion company. So
your voting right's going to be a bit.
You're not going to have much of a voting right, but you are able to trade about 4,500 different shares on the platform at the moment. We are adding new shares all the time, so there are a whole range of new ones coming on, and we'll communicate those with everyone as we update the list.
Yeah, and all of the shares that we showed on today, you can trade with Superhero.
Yep.
And the last one, which we often have some questions about, is how does Superhero make money if we charge zero brokerage?
Yeah, so one of the big questions that we get is around this is also, do we get paid for order flow? And payment for order flow is very common in the US market. It's where you get the broker receives payment when clients are trading shares. We don't receive any payment for order flow. The way that every trade actually costs Superhero money, the way that we offset that cost is by charging an FX fee, and that FX fee offsets the cost of transactions per customer, and that's where we generate our revenue from.
Yeah, great. And I think I can see we've got quite a few live questions, so we might have time to go through a few of those. Just give us a minute and we'll bring those up. We might be able to stop sharing. Yeah. Stop sharing our screen there. Okay. In the Q&A. So the legal and tax perspective, I think we covered off that one.
Someone's asked, are we looking to expand to Canadian shares anytime soon? We are looking at a whole range of new markets. We don't have anything in the very short term. We have just launched US, but adding on new markets is definitely an opportunity, and expanding in North America it's a natural sort of progression there. Yeah. One of the questions says, are there any extra fees for depositing money similar to, can I mention the name?
I don't know. Similar to other competitors' deposit fees.
That have deposit fees.
Yeah,
so no, there's no deposit fees. We do have an FX transfer fee. It is real time. There's no additional fees for speeding that process up. It takes, when you click the button, the transfer is triggered immediately, and you're able to use those funds to go and place trades on the US. So there's no additional deposit fees. The way that you fund your Aussie dollar account is using Pay ID. You get your own unique Pay ID. You've got your own unique Superhero BSB and account number as well, so you can deposit with that. and we've got BPay as well. So there's no additional deposit fees for transferring to US.
Yeah, I think something we try to pride ourselves on is the transparency and simplicity of our fee structure as well. So you won't be hit with any unknown fees. It'll all be there upfront for you when you're actually trading, and when you're doing your transfer, you will actually see the direct fee amount there. It's all upfront. It's all in real time, and we don't slap anything on you later on.
Next one is, what's the time frame between transferring funds from your bank account onto the platform? So you can use Pay ID. It is real time. It usually takes a couple of seconds. It's usually quicker than a couple of seconds. Do note that some banks do, on the first Pay ID transfer you do, they do sometimes put a security hold on your money, which can be up to 24 hours. I know when I first transferred through CommBank, they held it for 24 hours. Once that's done, you can deposit in real time. So yeah, if you used a BSB account number to transfer into your Superhero BSB account number, that can be overnight. That uses a different system, unless your bank is already set up with Pay ID or OSCO payments for your BSB account number transfers. Yeah. So some do happen in real time. Some are overnight, depending on your bank.
Yeah. So you can deposit money with bank transfer or BPay if you'd prefer. There is a $1 fee for BPay, but for bank transfer, there's no fees either. So if you want to do your normal BSB account number transfer, you can do that. Something I use, which is interesting to mention, is I actually use a recurring deposit from my bank account. So I use bank transfer because I can set it up automatically. It deposits money each month into my Superhero account, and then I can trade from there. So I don't even have to think about going in and depositing anymore all the time. It's just something I do to be able to automate and not think about it and make it even more convenient for myself. So there is that option if you want to set up recurring deposits from your bank too.
Yep. Someone's just noted that I didn't introduce you in the beginning.
Oh no!
How rude of me.
Should I have introduced myself?
I should have introduced you. Sorry, this is Rachel Hopping. Rachel runs all of our webinars, but she's also marketing lead here at Superhero and an all-round champion. So tick that one.
I've been on a few of our webinars. You'll know who I am if you've watched any back on our YouTube channel.
So another question just on W8 Ben forms. You've had to fill them out on other platforms. Do you need to fill it out on our platform too? The answer is yes. However, we are an authorized representative of the IRS in the US. So we have the authority to capture your information without you actually filling out a W8 Ben form. So we capture that information from you through our onboarding questions to save you from having to print out and sign and send back a form or doing it in some electronic way. So it's really just a selecting what country you live in and agreeing to the terms and conditions. So it's a much easier process.
Yeah, I can see a question there. Is the US trading app the same as the AU app? And yes, so everything is in the one place. Your wallet, your Superhero wallet, is where you can deposit funds, you transfer from Aussie to US, you can also transfer back from US to Aussie.
Yep.
So everything is in the one place. Everything is very simple and easy to understand. And when you go to invest and you go to our invest dashboard, we've got categories. So categories will now show Aussie and US stocks, but we also have a little flag filter that if you only want to see Australian stocks or you only want to see US, you can do that as well. So that's on the top of the dashboard. So it really allows you to filter and see what you want to see. But we've also introduced a number of new US focused categories in our invest dashboard as well. So the likes of big US tech, kind of some of the more consumer staples, but you'll also see within the existing categories, for example, buy now, pay later, all of the US companies that fit that category as well. Same thing with ethical investing and those types of categories.
Someone's just asked, how long does it take for US stock purchases to settle? The US market works the same way as the Aussie market. It's T+2. So if you sell shares, they need to settle before you can transfer the funds out. Just on the FX transfers though, if you transferred US dollars back to Aussie dollars, you could withdraw it straight away. So there's no limitation on that, but you can reinvest US shares. So if you sell US shares, you can buy other US shares straight away. So there's no holding period. There's no limitation on day trading as well. It's not like you get limited to, I think it's 5 trades per 7 days or something like we've seen on other platforms. You really have the freedom to trade as you will. But if you want to sell a stock and withdraw money, you do need to wait for those shares to settle, which is the trade day plus 2 days. So it's 2 business days after the day you trade. Let's see what else we've got.
Time for a few more.
Let's have a look.
Minimum amount to trade US shares.
Good one.
So the minimum amount for Aussie and US is $100. So if you're wanting to trade, it's $100. Like we said, with fractional shares, there are some shares that are thousands of dollars to buy one. So having that $100 mark allows you to use your $100 to get into some of those stocks that you might not otherwise. You don't have to buy the whole share.
Let's have a look. What else have we got?
There's a few in chat.
If you've completed a W8 bend form with another broker, would you need to complete it again with Superhero? Yes, you do. We have got and the other broker alike has got the reporting requirement to the IRS. So yes, you would have to. It really is a simple process, though. It's just selecting a number of questions along the way and ticking a box. So it's not a major burden.
Yeah.
Just one person or a couple of people have asked about ownership and the ownership structure for US shares. So like our Aussie shares, all US shares across all investment platforms, whether it's us, our Australian peers or US peers, all US shares are held in custody. So they are all held within a nominee or a custody structure. We use Apex, which is a massive US broker-dealer and custodian. These guys handle some of the biggest US and global fintechs in terms of their share trading platforms. So multi-billion-dollar custodian. But yeah, talking about the ownership structure, US and pretty much everywhere around the world, they use custody to hold shares. Australia is a little bit unique where there's about 5 or 10% of shares or assets in Australia that are held through CHESS, versus the traditional custody structure that we see across ETFs, superannuation, and funds management, the whole sort of I guess financial industry. Other than direct shares are held through custody, but yeah, US shares are all held through custody.
Yeah, just to mention there, back to the minimums to trade, I just wanted to clarify that it's $100 Aussie to trade Aussie shares and $100 US to trade US shares. Wanted to make sure that was clear for everyone.
Can I put limit orders on for fractional buying? Yes, you can. There's limit orders for buying and selling. You can buy fractional amounts with limit and market orders.
Yeah.
What is another one? Let's do 2 more.
I think we've nearly covered most of them there. So to withdraw funds, John, you have to convert those back into Australian dollars for now. Is that correct?
To withdraw funds, yes. You can only deposit and withdraw Aussie dollars.
Yeah.
So you would have to move your US dollars back to Aussie and then you can withdraw them. We don't allow for foreign transfer in or out. Certainly not at this stage. We do have other order types that we're looking at. So stop loss functionality, which would roll out across the Aussie platform and the US platform. That is a work in progress. But it is coming.
Different account types too is another one that we've got in the works. So if you're wanting to invest as a trust or invest as a self-managed super fund, you'll be able to do that on the platform as well.
So just one last question, the tax reports for US. If you go into reports on the platform, so if you log in on your computer, you'll see reports down the left-hand side. There's Aussie reports. We've split it out to be Aussie reports and US reports. So there's a range of different reports for each market. and that will be realized and unrealized capital gains. So the unrealized is shares you own. It'll show you how much money you know what your gain or loss is on each position that you have, and the realized is companies that you've sold, so you've bought and then sold, and what gain or loss you've made on those as well. We split it out into tax years as well, so whether you've held it for less than 12 months or more than 12 months, which will help you calculate the CGT discounts that you get as well.
Yep. Just quickly on that too. So that's not available within the mobile app. There's a lot of, deep reporting functionality there. So you'll need to log in on the web app. So if you go to superhero.com.au, you'll be able to log in there and see all of those reports and download them as a PDF to be able to use. I know we said two more, but very quickly to cover it off, the Europe and Asian market someone was asking about, and I think it's back to that point that we discussed earlier, is you can actually get exposure to a lot of the European and Asian markets through the US market and through ETFs as well, both listed on the ASX and in the US. So while I guess we'll consider a lot of things as we go, you can actually get that exposure to those markets now with the options that are available. So do some research, have a look around at what your options are, but you do get exposure to those markets through the US and through the ASX.
We might leave it there. There's a whole range of FAQs on our website. If you have any more questions, all of the answers are there. We've got live chat. We've got people on live chat, Australians as well. So you will be talking to a human, and they are Aussie, who are on for Australian market hours and US market hours. So we do have support across both market times. Outside of those market times, there's usually someone on, but you will be able to send through an email or a ticket through our chat functionality, and we will get back to you pretty quickly. If you've got any more questions, reach out. We're happy to help. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be hopefully running these webinars about every 2 weeks on a range of different topics. We've got some pretty cool ones coming up. So always look out for your emails. We'll try to put it on our Instagram and our social media as well. But any webinar that we do run, we also put on YouTube if you want to watch it back, if you want to go into more detail on something that we're saying. So don't worry. If you feel like you've missed something, you can go back and watch it on YouTube. So that'll be available in the next couple of days, and we'll send out the link on email as well. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. I hope you're all doing well, and we'll hopefully see you in our next webinar. Great to chat with you. Cheers.